Hey, I was just listening to the Thousand Movie Podcast, an excellent podcast, um, very rarely about movies, but I was looking at his back catalog of things, which are a lot shorter, a lot more fragmentary, a lot less flow, but he does actually talk about movies ever so briefly. I think get the sense that this podcast was an offshoot of the blog post, and then it kind of like a behind the scenes kind of little look at the essays he writes in his blog about Thousand Movies. Um, but it's developed more. But he was talking about very tangentially in the thing about Ready Player One, and doesn't say much about it, but he mentions briefly. It's like, oh, he did this movie just after like you know months months earlier doing The Post, which I saw recently, and I reviewed. I had to actually check and make sure I'd actually reviewed it, because usually I watch a movie and then I walk out into the backyard and I talk about it immediately, and then I completely forget that I did. And I think, and I was like, wow, he did The Post and then he did Ready Player One, because The Post is kind of an assured picture of a mature filmmaker, quiet, tense, well-told history. Like, it's a history play, showing the arc of the female owner of the Washington Post, played by Meryl Streep, and her kind of development as a person, maybe showing the regrets of the editor of the Washington Post, is played by Tom Hanks. It's got themes, it's got characters, it's got thoughts in it. Which is to go back to like Ready Player One, which is like, it's a 2011, very light novel. It was based on by Ernest Cline, which, there has been junkier stuff that has been made into great movies. I have not read The Godfather, but I've heard that it was a fairly junky novel that kind of got elevated into, as a novel, at the very least, it's just a functional novel, whereas the movie is probably considered one of those kind of greats of American filmmaking of that period. Martin Scorsese at his height, at least for Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Definitely not Godfather 3 or The Coda, it sounds like. But that movie magic did not happen with Ready Player One in 2018, the movie. If not, actually, you get the sense of this is a dispirited filmmaker who's like, okay, I made the picture I wanted to make, this history picture, kind of following up from like his Lincoln thing with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's like, okay, now I'm making one for them, and it has that very much that one for them, kind of drag myself through it. This very pop-tastic movie. But you can, I think it's one of those things, like, you half want to go back and see Spielberg's earlier poppier work and go, oh, is it me who's gotten older and it just isn't that fun now that I'm old? I think I've caught little glimpses of like Indiana Jones films playing at my workplace, because I work in a house where the residents are watching movies and stuff like that. And, I'll kind of flip by and it's like, no, these actually do have that kind of, that energy, that kind of youthful kind of like, we're going to have fun. I'm going to recreate on the grand scale the serials of my youth, but I'm going to give them like a big budget and have great actors and great visuals. And I'm going to use all of my kind of great, all these kind of just this technique that Steven Spielberg has to be able to kind of frame and tell stories, tell exciting adventure stories on the screen. and you get to Ready Player One, and like it's all CGI, which there's filmmakers who can use CGI, give it weight and give it feeling, but you sorely miss the weight and feeling that he was able to work with um, physical special effects or models or matte paintings back in the day. It's like he's been given the tools, but you definitely get the sense that this is not a it's a filmmaker who doesn't know how to give it weight and heft, and probably just doesn't have the enthusiasm for it, to be honest. And it's like he's playing with a pop culture that you get the sense that Steven Spielberg as a person was probably too busy working to actually, be in his basement geeking out over this stuff. He was too busy. The stuff that it's nostalgic for is stuff that he was busy making at the time. So, maybe the closest he comes to it is like the filmmaker that he admires, recreating Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, the hotel and The Shining. That's that sequence. But even there, it kind of gets undone by the thing. So, which I guess is to say, yeah, the it's so lightweight because it's all digital, poor digital filmmaking, poor CGI, poor storytelling, with a script based on hewing close to a novel that really didn't have very much to say and was very kind of light and fluffy. It needed somebody who to just kind of rah through it, and to kind of get the enthusiasm going enough to make you overlook the story. I've read the Ernest Cline's novel, and it was fun and it was enthusiastic and it was okay. And I apparently his follow-up is terrible and has sunk without a trace. And the movie itself was kind of greeted with at the time, so I doubt very much they'll be making a sequel of it. Yeah. Steven Spielberg, you should stick to yours, because theirs is doesn't you no favors. That said, I'm sure Ready Player One probably made much more money than The Post, though The Post probably cost a hell of a lot less. So who knows? But it's a tough game, Hollywood, isn't it? All right, I will leave it there for that little movie ramble.